Uncover the foundations of the Bible in this complete Genesis overview. Imagine yourself in a moment of silence. The world around you is noisy, bustling with ambition, worry, and endless distractions. Yet here you are, curious, ready to uncover the first whispers of divine truth recorded in the Bible. Genesis isn't just a book of beginnings, it's a mirror. A story of humanity's essence, our triumphs, failures, and relationship with the Creator. Let me take you to the very first breath of creation. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Stop and let those words settle. The magnitude of this claim is astounding. Everything you see, each blade of grass, every star scattered across the infinite expanse of space, was intentionally designed. And so were you. We'll walk through these chapters, not as mere readers, but as seekers of deeper meaning. Think about this: why do beginnings matter so much to us? Perhaps it's because, like Genesis, our own lives are filled with moments where something new is born, opportunities, relationships, or even a second chance after failure. Creation itself teaches us one profound truth: beginnings are sacred. The first act of creation isn't just about forming a world. It's about introducing order into chaos. The earth was formless and void, and then light broke through. Isn't that the story of your life at times? Moments where everything seems uncertain, dark, formless, and then something clicks. An idea, a relationship, a divine nudge. What if I told you that God's creation narrative isn't just historical, it's personal? He speaks order into your chaos, just as he did at the dawn of time. Genesis quickly introduces humanity, crafted in God's image. Think about that for a moment. What does it mean to bear the image of God? Does it change how you see yourself? How you see others? In the world's obsession with appearances and achievements, Genesis calls us to remember something radical: you are sacred. Your neighbor is sacred. The image of God within us transcends nationality, race, or status. But with that image comes responsibility. Have you ever felt the weight of a decision? In the Garden of Eden, Adam and Eve stood before a choice. The forbidden fruit wasn't just about disobedience, it was a crossroads, a moment where trust in divine wisdom clashed with the lure of independence. The serpent's voice whispered, "You will be like God," and it still echoes today in every decision we make, driven by pride, greed, or doubt. Let's pause. What voices influence your decisions? Do you trust in the Creator's wisdom? Or do you lean on your own understanding? This isn't about condemnation, it's about reflection. Genesis invites us to see Adam and Eve's choice as a mirror to our own struggles with trust and surrender. But the story doesn't end in exile. Even after the fall, God's mercy shows up. He clothes Adam and Eve, protects Cain, and makes a covenant with Noah. Here lies the heart of Genesis: God is relentlessly committed to humanity. His faithfulness doesn't waver, even when we stumble. Ask yourself, how many times has God met me with grace when I least deserved it? From chaos to covenant, how God's promises anchor our lives. We left off with a profound truth: God's faithfulness endures even when humanity falters. Now, let's explore how Genesis pivots from chaos to covenant, revealing the heart of a God who doesn't abandon his creation. Enter Abraham. When God calls him, he doesn't offer a detailed blueprint, just a promise and a challenge: go to the land I will show you. Imagine the uncertainty Abraham must have felt. Would you leave everything behind on a promise? Genesis teaches us something counterintuitive: faith often requires stepping into the unknown. Abraham's journey is about more than geography, it's about trust. And God doesn't just ask for trust, He reciprocates. Through the covenant, God promises to make Abraham's descendants as numerous as the stars. Can you picture that? Look up at the night sky and count the stars if you can. That's the measure of God's blessing, not just for Abraham but for you. What promises has God whispered to your heart? Of course, faith is rarely straightforward. Abraham and Sarah's story is punctuated by doubt and missteps. They grow impatient. And Ishmael is born, a result of human effort rather than divine timing. Yet even here, God's grace shines. He blesses Ishmael and keeps his covenant with Isaac. Genesis reminds us that our mistakes don't derail God's plans. His faithfulness remains steadfast. Let's dive deeper into the story of Jacob and Esau. The sibling rivalry is relatable: envy, betrayal, reconciliation. Jacob's life is marked by deception. Yet God chooses him. Why? Genesis shatters the illusion that God's favor depends on our perfection. Instead, it shows us that His plans often unfold through flawed individuals, weaving redemption into every thread. Pause and reflect. How often do you disqualify yourself from grace because of your imperfections? One of the most moving moments in Genesis is Jacob's wrestling with God. It's a literal struggle, but it's also symbolic of our spiritual journeys. Have you ever wrestled with God, questioning His will, His timing, His purpose? Jacob emerges with a limp, but also a blessing. Genesis teaches us that struggling with God isn't a sign of weakness, it's a path to deeper faith. The story crescendos with Joseph, a dreamer betrayed by his brothers, thrown into a pit, sold into slavery, falsely accused, and imprisoned. Joseph's life seems like a series of tragedies. Yet, through it all, God is at work. What if I told you that your struggles, too, can be redeemed? Genesis assures us that no pit is too deep for God's purpose. In the end, Joseph forgives his brothers, declaring, "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good." This single verse encapsulates Genesis' message: God's sovereignty transforms even our darkest moments into something beautiful. Ask yourself, what pain in my life could God be using for a greater purpose? From Genesis to Jesus, the ultimate fulfillment of God's story. As we journey toward the conclusion of Genesis, we begin to see its threads leading directly to Christ. Genesis isn't just a standalone story, it's the foundation for the ultimate redemption found in Jesus. Let's connect the dots. The covenants with Noah, Abraham, and Jacob foreshadow the new covenant through Christ. When God promises Abraham that all nations will be blessed through you, it's a glimpse of Jesus, the descendant who would fulfill that promise. Every sacrifice, every altar in Genesis points to the cross. Have you ever considered how deeply intertwined your faith is with the stories of Genesis? Even the flaws of Genesis heroes reveal something about Jesus. Where Adam fails, Christ succeeds. Where Abraham doubts, Christ trusts. Where Jacob deceives, Christ embodies truth. Jesus is the fulfillment of Genesis, not just in lineage but in purpose. He restores what was lost in Eden, offering us a way back to communion with God. Think about the Tower of Babel, where humanity's pride leads to division. Now contrast that with Pentecost, where the Holy Spirit unites people across languages and cultures. Genesis shows us the problem, and Christ provides the solution. Pause and reflect. In what areas of my life am I building my own tower, rather than trusting in God's plan? The story of Joseph provides a vivid parallel to Christ. Like Joseph, Jesus is betrayed, falsely accused, and abandoned. Yet, through his suffering, salvation is brought to many. Joseph's forgiveness of his brothers mirrors Christ's forgiveness of us. Can you imagine standing before someone who hurt you deeply and offering grace instead of judgment? That's the challenge and beauty of living out the gospel. As Genesis closes, we see Jacob blessing his sons, each one representing a tribe of Israel. These tribes lay the foundation for God's people, through whom Jesus will come. The book ends, but the story doesn't. Genesis invites us to see our own lives as part of this unfolding narrative, a story of creation, fall, redemption, and restoration. Let's conclude with this. Genesis isn't just about the beginning of the world, it's about the beginning of your journey with God. It reminds us that we are created with purpose, loved despite our flaws, and invited into a relationship with the Creator. Will you accept that invitation?